Now, South African schools have become accustomed to a stop-start method due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This prompted online teaching and learning, with the move to virtual learning fast becoming a preferred mode by many parents. However, part of what stimulates children in a learning environment is the ability to physically, emotionally and mentally engage as well as explore learning material. How will the absence of contact learning affect children in the long term? We discuss this and more with education psychologist Vanessa Barnes. Vanessa, great morning. Thank you for speaking to us. Do we actually know what the long-term impacts would be of this contactless learning?
Morning. Thanks for having me. Yes, we do. And, more research is emerging in terms of this. But I think the main points here would be that social interaction is just diminished. Those with learning difficulties are profoundly affected. Personal growth and mental health difficulties are developing. And online learning and access to schooling can impact learners in the long run in terms of the development of learning difficulties.
What does that impact? What does it look like?
Well, long-term effects of COVID-19, if we look at online learning, we are not always supervised, or the children are not always supervised by parents because those parents have to work. And in terms of online learning, those learners cannot always ask teachers questions in person, which is often very, very important. And those who are economically disadvantaged, people who have limited access to smart devices and to internet, are those who are the most affected in terms of learning because they are missing out on concepts that they need in order to further their learning later on.
So undoubtedly there are challenges long-term that will occur. But when I was growing up, I loved to play. I liked to be out there playing with my friends. Now, children can't really go outside and play because they have to social distance. And so many rules. I mean, kids are about breaking rules typically. So what is this doing to children now? I mean, if you look at a child, say, 20 months ago before COVID, and you look at a child now, are there disparities in their development and their overall demeanor? Are they less happy, for instance?
Yes, because if you think about it, this often affects younger children more, as you mentioned, in terms of play. They are most able to learn from observing others. And young children develop the skills to communicate with others, to express their feelings and gain a sense of self. When the children are very young, they get the opportunity to practice sharing and learning ideas from their peers and the adults around them. Imaginative play, as you mentioned earlier, has an important role in terms of allowing children to experiment with various ideas and to better understand abstract thinking. And if we think about that long term, their abstract thinking abilities are compromised.
Obviously, massive challenges. Now, how do parents deal with the situation or counter the effects of what we've faced with at the moment? So if a parent is sitting at home watching right now, what is it that they can do?
I think in terms of, if we look first at, social distancing and wearing masks, it's important to explain why it's important to wear a mask and to help them feel more comfortable wearing that. And with little ones, just to explain to them what germs are, but in very simple language. Explain that mask wearing, as you mentioned earlier, is a rule now. And, parents can put on their mask first, and that shows the children that it's safe to wear a mask. You can decorate or buy fun masks where possible. But, in terms of online learning, it's a challenge for parents because often they don't have the time or the skills or the resources to sit with their children and help them with their work.
Now, I might prep for this interview. I spoke to a teacher a couple of days ago who said to me that one of her biggest challenges is that with children wearing masks in class, she can't always tell the expression on a child's face. So if a child is potentially sad or just perplexed, for instance, by a concept, you can't actually tell.
Absolutely. I mean, if you even actually think more about children with learning disabilities, especially those who have hearing, seeing, and cognitive functioning difficulties, they're profoundly affected by mask wearing and distancing, because the hearing impaired look at reading lips in order to understand people, and they can't do that when masks are on. And it's also very important for teachers to be able to see the expressions on the children's face, because it gives them an indication of how the child is feeling, if the child is coping or not, whether or not their social interaction is okay, whether they're being bullied, things like that.
Now, do you suspect that, obviously with all that's happening with COVID, we've lost a huge amount of learning over the last 18 months, that potentially some of the children that we are producing at various levels, for instance, those that do their matric, are there any chances that they would be half-baked, for want of a better description? Do they go out into the world without as much information as they potentially could have gotten? And how do they deal with that?
Absolutely. So in terms of, the social interaction aspect, and as I mentioned earlier, being able to communicate with their teachers on a one-on-one basis, they lose out on certain learning opportunities. And the other thing is they could lose out on content, because the teachers are placed in a very difficult position where they are trying to provide as much support as they can, but on a different platform. And that is extremely difficult, because those children could lose out on, content. And going forward, it's very difficult for them to catch up on that content. So long term, it is going to have a profound effect on their matric results, and that can then impact on further learning after school, whether they get accepted into various universities or technicons. So there really are implications here in terms of learning and progressing beyond school.
Vanessa Barnes, thank you for your time this morning. Education psychologist Vanessa Barnes speaking to us.